Have you ever felt lost in the dark? Not just the kind of darkness when the power goes out, but a deeper, more personal darkness. The kind that makes you feel isolated, like you're the only one stumbling through a world where everyone else seems to have a clear path. It's a feeling we've all known at some point. It's in those moments that we crave a light, any light, to show us the way. Today, I want to tell you a story about a simple candle, and how its tiny flame sparked a revolution of hope in the heart of a forgotten village. Imagine a small, quiet village nestled deep within a valley, surrounded by towering mountains that scrape the sky. This village, named Aetheria, was a place time seemed to forget. Its people were hardworking, their hands calloused from tilling the soil, and their faces etched with the stories of generations. They didn't have much, but they had each other. Their lives were simple, governed by the rising and setting of the sun. But one year, a storm of unprecedented fury rolled in from over the mountains. It wasn't just rain and wind. It was a force of nature that tore through Aetheria, snapping the power lines that were their fragile connection to the modern world. Days turned into a week, and the week stretched into a month. The darkness that fell each evening was no longer a familiar comfort. It was a thick, suffocating blanket. The initial sense of community spirit began to fray. People stayed locked in their homes, the silence between houses growing louder than any conversation ever had. Fear, like a creeping vine, began to wrap itself around their hearts. They feared the unseen things in the night. They feared for their dwindling supplies. But most of all, they feared that they had been completely and utterly forgotten. The world outside the valley, it seemed, had moved on without them. In a small cottage at the edge of the village lived an old woman named Elara. Her hair was as white as the snow that capped the distant peaks, and her eyes held a gentle wisdom. While others succumbed to despair, Elara held on to a quiet, unshakable faith. She wasn't naive. She saw the growing anxiety in her neighbors' eyes and heard the unspoken fear in their hushed greetings. She knew that something had to be done, not by some outside force, but by them, by the people of Aetheria. One evening, as the last bit of daylight bled from the sky, Elara searched through an old wooden chest. Her fingers, gnarled with age, brushed past worn fabrics and forgotten trinkets until they found what she was looking for, a single, slender candle. It was nothing special, just a simple stick of wax with a frayed wick. It was the last one she had. Most people would have saved it, hoarded it for a personal emergency, a private little beacon against their own darkness. But Elara had a different idea. She lit the candle. A tiny, flickering flame sprang to life, casting a warm, golden glow on her wrinkled face. It was such a small light in a world consumed by shadow. It seemed insignificant, almost laughably weak against the vast, oppressive blackness outside her window. Yet, in that little pool of light, Elara saw not weakness, but potential. She saw a beginning. Carefully shielding the fragile flame with her hand, she stepped out of her cottage and into the night. Her first stop was the house next door, where a young family lived. The father, Kale, was a strong man, but his shoulders were slumped with the weight of worry for his two small children. When he opened the door to Elara's soft knock, his face was a mask of exhaustion. He saw the old woman in the tiny light she carried. He was about to ask what she wanted when she simply held the candle out to him. "This is for you," she said, her voice soft but clear. "But there is a condition. Before this candle burns out, you must use it to light a candle for another." Kale was stunned. A gift? In a time when everyone was clinging to what little they had? He looked at the flame, then at Elara's serene face. He didn't have a candle to offer in return. He felt a pang of shame, but then he remembered an old, half-used candle his wife had packed away. He found it, and Elara touched her flame to its wick. A second light bloomed in the darkness. As Elara turned to leave, Kale looked at his own children, their faces illuminated by the soft glow, their eyes wide with wonder. For the first time in weeks, he felt a flicker of something he had thought long extinguished: hope. True to his promise, Kale didn't hoard the light. He remembered his elderly neighbor on the other side, a man named Finn who lived alone and had been struggling. With his newly lit candle, Kale walked to Finn's house. The scene repeated. The initial surprise, the moment of connection, and the lighting of another candle. Finn, in turn, took his light to the baker's family. The baker, who had been unable to work without power, shared the light with the weaver. The weaver shared it with the carpenter. A beautiful, silent procession began to unfold throughout Aetheria. From house to house, the light was passed. A single flame, passed from one hand to the next, was multiplying. It was a chain reaction of kindness. What started as one tiny pinpoint of light was becoming a constellation on the valley floor. People began to emerge from their homes, not with fear, but with purpose. They weren't just receiving light, they were carrying it, becoming part of the miracle themselves. Imagine the scene from atop one of the mountains. A village, once plunged into absolute blackness, was now twinkling. One light became two, two became four became a dozen, and soon, the entire village was aglow. The paths between houses, once treacherous and unseen, were now illuminated by people walking, sharing, and talking. The suffocating silence was broken by laughter and conversation. The light didn't just push back the physical darkness, it burned away the darkness of fear and isolation that had taken root in their hearts. They gathered in the village square, each family holding their candle. The collective light was so bright it felt like a defiant sunrise in the middle of the night. They looked at each other, truly seeing each other for the first time in weeks. They saw the shared worry, but they also saw the shared relief and the shared strength. They realized they were never truly alone. The power was not in the candle itself, but in the act of sharing it. The hope wasn't in waiting for rescue, but in rescuing each other. That single candle didn't magically restore the electricity. It didn't fill their pantries or fix the broken lines. But it did something far more important. It restored their spirit. It reminded them of who they were, a community. In the days that followed, inspired by this newfound unity, the villagers began to work together. Kale organized a team to clear the debris. The baker figured out how to use his wood-fired oven to bake bread for everyone. The carpenter repaired damaged roofs. They pooled their resources, shared their food, and looked after one another. They had found their power again, and it had nothing to do with electricity. This story of Aetheria is more than just a tale about a blackout. It's a parable for our own lives. How often do we feel like we are in the dark, overwhelmed by our problems, feeling small and insignificant? We wait for a grand solution, a blinding floodlight to solve everything at once. But often, the solution starts with something small. It starts with a single, seemingly insignificant act of faith, kindness, or courage. Your candle might not be a literal one. It could be a kind word to someone who is struggling. It could be a listening ear for a friend in need. It could be sharing your own story of overcoming a challenge, letting someone else know they are not alone. It could be that small step you take toward a goal that feels impossibly far away. It's easy to think, what difference can I make? I'm just one person. But as Alara showed us, one person with one small light is all it takes to start a movement. The most powerful part of the story is the condition Alara gave before this candle burns out. You must use it to light a candle for another. This is the key. Hope is not meant to be hoarded. When we receive a bit of light, a moment of grace or strength, we have a choice. We can keep it for ourselves, and eventually, it will burn out, leaving us in the dark once more. Or, we can use it to light someone else's candle, and in doing so, we don't lose our own light. We amplify it. We create more light in the world. Think about the darkness you see around you, whether it's in your personal life, your community, or the world at large. It can feel overwhelming, just like the blackout in Aetheria. But don't underestimate the power of your single flame. Don't wait for someone else to fix the darkness. Be the one who strikes the match. Be the Alara of your own village. Light your candle, and then, go and share that light. You have no idea how many other flames you might ignite. You might just be the one to set your world aglow. Thank you so much for watching and for letting me share this story with you. If it resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. What's a small act of light you've either given or received recently? Let's fill the comments with our own little flames. And if you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing for more stories that I hope will inspire and encourage you. Take care, and remember to share your light.